feel free to jump in. So Sam, first things first, wondering if you could just introduce yourself and tell us about the project.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm really grateful to be here with you. I'm Sam. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur now. I didn't mean for this to happen, but here we are. I founded the On Canada project. It was then called the On COVID-19 project in June of 2020. And that was because I think the mayor, I'm pretty sure it was the mayor of the city I was living in at the time, said, if you don't want COVID to spread, like just don't take public transit or something of that effect. And it just broke my brain. I studied the health sector in my master's and my undergraduate studies. And I was like, bro, are you for real? Like, do you really think that people are up there in each other's like body odor because they enjoy public transit? Like, it's a necessity. They have to take it. You can't tell us not, like, stop the virus, make other, like, have paid sick leave, do other things. Don't just tell us not to take public transit as you drive into your like paid reserved parking at City Hall. And it just blew my brain up. I was just like, this cannot be the world we exist in. So I went, you know what, this is not like, we're not about, like, this is the crisis that I can help with. Not the transport thing. Like, I don't know how to drive, so that would not have been a solution for me. But this public health crisis is something I can help with. Like, if it was a financial crisis, I'd be screwed. I do not understand money. And if we were going to war, I'd be screwed too, because I don't have any upper body strength. So the only thing I'm able to do really is support with creating infographics about public health information. And I started to do that. And I asked our sort of like the community that started following us if anyone wanted to help, because it felt a little overwhelming to do it alone. And eventually came across a team of 130 volunteers. Well, in total, we've had over 600 volunteers, but every month we've kept about 130. Sorry, can you guys hear my dog? I'm so sorry. And I guess we started talking about COVID, but then we started broadening it into other conversations, because you can't talk about COVID in isolation. And eventually we would pivot to start talking about like any Canadian issue, because we felt that if access to information was helpful during a global pandemic, then access to information is going to be important all the time. Because the more work we can do to set up Canadians, in particular, marginalized communities and racialized folks for success, the more empowered they are to take action in their lives. And I guess midway through, like, the project started in June, but somewhere around April, I was like, maybe there's merit to this. Maybe it should be like a social enterprise. Maybe we should scale it and grow it. And I guess I leaned into that opportunity, and of course found an incredible team of predominantly racialized women to help work with us, and friends like Daniel to help support and teach us how to show up. And I'm so sorry. In the last 2 months, we've worked with Kids Help Phone, Sidley, and Maple Leaf Foods, and somebody else, Google News Initiative, to get content out there. So I don't know, it's going okay. We'll see how it goes. But it's work that makes me feel like I'm making a difference in the world, and it's work that makes me feel excited to wake up every day, and also very confused, but in a good way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I know you're being humble, but can you list, for example, give us some numbers. How big is your following now? And can you give us some examples of some of the maybe media appearances or places you've had the chance to be featured since you started?
Sure. We've had pretty like major news coverage of the project. I don't like talking about it, but it's on our website. We've been featured on CBC, Global News, CP24, Six Buzz, which was really cool because my cousin finally thought I was cool, and that was really exciting. He's 16. We've had the Prime Minister on an IG live, which was also kind of shocking because I thought he was going to stand us up. And we've been working with the senator to bring sort of government information to our community. I don't know, we've been really lucky. We've had really great coverage. And people seem to be resonating with the work we're doing. So it's exciting, but it's really a team sport. I always feel awkward being the person to speak about it because, as I'm sure all of you know, it doesn't, like, one person can't do shit. You got to be with your crew. You have to have people that support you, whether they're on your team or people like Daniel who aren't on your team formally, but like somehow always emerge out of the woodwork with like a great idea or a way to scale something that you've been thinking about. So really focusing in on this like community over competition idea has helped us, I think, stay sane through all of this. Because when you take competition out of your mind, it's just like you're doing the work because you love the work and not because you're trying to beat anybody. Yeah, I guess that's what we've been featured on. I don't know, podcasts, things, cool things.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. So can you tell us at least one or two things that either surprised you or that you learned since you started?
I think personally, I've been learning a lot about who I am and how I want to show up. I went through most of my life with a lot of internalized racism, and I've been unpacking that over the last 5 years. So having the courage to show up fully on the Instagram account and share that truth, and then seeing that like authenticity in the work that you're doing, when you're writing, when you're leading, when you're doing whatever you're choosing to do, can actually like be enough or be more than enough. Whereas I feel like I spent most of my life either code switching or minimizing parts of myself or being afraid to be tokenized as a person of color. But just showing up and owning all of it and not holding the discomfort that other people may have around my authenticity, I guess, has been like a great learning experience for me. And then in terms of entrepreneurship, it's not as scary as I thought it would be, but it's still pretty scary, but in the best way. And I think doing the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. The Maya Angelou quote is something that I have really internalized over the last year because I used to be a bit of a perfectionist. And obviously that's hard to do when you're launching something and you're afraid of money and you're scared of other bigger things. But trusting that someone will come along and help you figure it out and asking for help. I think that's been a really big one too. I think being a perfectionist, I was always afraid to ask for help because it would be seen as a weakness. But now I will ask anybody for help, like at any point, shamelessly, because I would also offer help to anyone who asked me. So yeah.
Awesome. If anyone has any questions, we have time for one or two questions. Feel free to put them in the chat, or you can just literally unmute yourself and try to ask. One that we wanted to know, or some of the groups that mentioned in their applications, what are some of the biggest challenges that you kind of overcame when making this your, essentially your full-time thing? A lot of participants are not sure if they can make it a full-time thing, and they'd love to know what some of your challenges and learnings were there.
Yeah, I think one is going at the pace that, like, challenge yourself, but going at a pace that keeps you sane. Because if you're going at a pace that you think other people, like other businesses go at, or other things go at, you're just like doing this comparison thing the entire time instead of focusing on what you care about and what you love and why you're doing this work. And then I think another thing is I've had people join our project that initially I thought really understood what we were doing, but ultimately we're not a great fit. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just trusting yourself and the values that you have and what you are creating, so that when somebody, and writing that down, that really helped me as well, because when someone challenges that or tells you what you're doing is wrong, measuring it against those values and being like, if it's aligning with those values, then it can't be too wrong, because that's where you started with this. So that was like, those are hard moments, but I feel like every one of them had a learning thing, maybe not right away, but like a week out or 2 weeks out, there's a learning opportunity to be found. And I write that all down and leave myself voice notes that maybe I'll listen to one day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then last question, since I don't see any that have come through, is when building your team, recruiting and managing your team, what's one tip you have for our audience here today?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this, because we've taken a really weird approach to it. One, we're like all volunteering right now. Although there is some of us that are now starting to get a bit of money, but I think the thing that I've done is like I've figured out in this past year what I'm really good at, and then as a result, what I suck at. And then I've been trying to find people who are really good at that thing that I suck at, and not like, I just don't do the things I suck at. So like when it comes to financial projections, I literally hide during the Zoom calls. Like, I don't like it. I don't want to be part of it. I'm going to listen because I feel like that's leading. I'm not sure. But I don't like the space. I don't want to be engaged in it. I'm going to work with my therapist on where that fear comes from, but we'll see. But I think what we've done really is ask people what they're really good at when they're interested, and like kind of hire for value fit rather than specific skills. I mean, we're looking for specific skills, but when someone gets the value and the energy and like what we're trying to, the goals and objectives of what we're doing, most of us have transferable skills that can be used anywhere. And it's just finding people with those right fits of like value. That's worked for me. I don't know if that's what works for everybody, but like I imagine if you're, I don't know how this would work, but if you're like an entrepreneur doing like medicine, like you're probably not going to hire for value. You want someone who went to med school probably, but and not someone who's just like, I care about the human body. I don't know, but yeah, I think that's more what worked for us.
For sure, yeah, and it's different. And you had, just to remind everyone, the number of volunteers you had when I guess at its peak, you had like over 100. If I remember correctly. Yeah.
So because it's a volunteer gig, like we ask people to stay on the project for as long as they can, knowing that we're living through a pandemic, knowing that people have like things on their plate, and trying to be like sensitive to that. While we've retained quite a few people, actually, in particular, people of color have stayed on the project, saying that it's one of the few places that has let them feel safe, which is quite an honor that we're really proud of. But overall, we've had over like 1,000 applicants to join our project, but we've had about 600 volunteers in total. And on average, every month we have about 130.
Awesome. That's a huge group to keep engaged. Now we got one question here from David, which is, you talked a little bit about focusing less on your competition and more on doing the work you love. Can you expand on that for us? And then we'll wrap up after this answer.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was a little part of me that when we started the On COVID-19 project account, which now is the On Canada project account, there were like 2 other Instagram accounts, and then slowly other accounts were showing up. And I remember having this like panic around like, oh my God, there's so many now. And like, how will we beat them? And how will we do better? And then I had this like immediate reaction, like visceral reaction of like, that's so gross, because the thing we're trying to beat is COVID-19, not each other. And when you focus on each other and how we can help each other to achieve our goals, you see people as like allies, like rather than competition. So we actually have like group chats with all the Instagram accounts doing similar work as us in our Instagram DMs. And we try to meet up once a month to talk about what we're dealing with, whether it's the democracy Instagram accounts or the health information Instagram accounts, because it's more important to support each other's work and amplify community than it is to try to be the one true like account. Like, what does that even mean? There's always going to be another account. Why not build a community that works with you? And then I think the moment we started doing that, there was like this pressure lifted off our shoulders of like no longer looking to beat anybody and rather try to beat misinformation and white supremacy. So the moment you like switch your focus, you're like, there are bigger fights to fight here. I'm going to take that on instead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing. I think some people had some good comments there, so we appreciate that. You are welcome to stick around for some of the pitches if you'd like, though I know you have a lot of other volunteers and posts and people to, to work with right now. So we're gonna say thank you again, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. So we're gonna dive